promising to stay with Mercedes. To start with, was putting reliability above all else a good decision? Mercedes had one of the hardest seasons because the W13 had a lot of problems. But when it came to power unit reliability, they were one of the best. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton both only DNF'd from one of the season's 22 races each. Hamilton had a problem with his hydraulics in Abu Dhabi, and Russell left his car after a big crash with Zhou Guanyu on the first lap at Silverstone. Since the beginning of the turbo hybrid era, Mercedes has been able to stay on top of reliability by making improvements over time. But has this strategy hurt Mercedes competitors' performance? In order to save money, the engine had been frozen since the beginning of 2022, and until 2026, only a few parts can be changed. During this time, only changes that make the F1 power units more reliable are allowed. Alpine has been unreliable since the hybrid era began, and Fernando Alonso had his share of problems this year, which he thinks cost him 60 points over the course of the season. The team has admitted that it put reliability ahead of performance, which executive director Bruno Faumont recently said was the plan at Renault/Alpine to make sure they were competitive. He said they took risks, but the plan was clear. They had to get the engine back in the race. With the engine freezing up, they wanted to improve our performance. They still have the option to fix reliability problems, but there weren't any big problems with the engine itself. Moving on to P4 in constructors shows performance beats reliability. You see, while the strategy at Alpine brought a lot of headaches throughout the season with retirements, they still managed to beat McLaren as the best of the rest team to P4 in the Constructors' Championship. It seems like Ferrari has taken a significant step in engine performance since their midfield disappointment in 2020, while Honda has firmly departed from its early days with McLaren by delivering 2 world championships with Red Bull. Mercedes has been consistently the standard for reliability, but then they were limited in 2022 with the W13's aerodynamic drag and porpoising in the high-speed corners. Still though, the power proved to be among the fastest, as was shown by Williams when Alex Albon finished 10th at the Belgium Grand Prix. The speed traps at Raidillon showed his car reaching 314.4 kilometers per hour. What's more, Alpine was held back because of reliability. When it comes to Alpine, you can look at it both ways. Last season, Alpine moved up from 5th place to 4th place, past McLaren. The English racing team from Enstone won 173 points. Before that, it was 155. That shows that performance is getting better, but rival McLaren fell from 275 points to 159 points. McLaren had an almost bulletproof car, but Lando Norris was the only driver who could consistently win. In his second year with McLaren, Daniel Ricciardo didn't do nearly as well as he should have. The head of the Alpine team, Otmar Szafnauer, said in the small midfield, you need 2 pilots who do their jobs well most of the time. If you only have one, it hurts you twice as much. And it seems like Andreas Seidel, who used to run races for McLaren, would agree. The thing is, reliability was Alpine's weak point. The French national racing team was upset that they were losing too often. 8 times, the Alpine drivers did not see the finish line flag. Szafnauer knows about the weakness, but he also sees it as a good thing for the upcoming season. According to him, they automatically get more points if they make sure they're reliable, and now he thinks they need to get closer to 3rd. In the last season, there were points in 19 of the 22 races. 8 times, Alpine scored twice. Lastly, what's the scope for Ferrari to improve in comparison to Mercedes? Even though there is some debate about how the change in rules about ride heights might affect them, Mercedes still has the edge when it comes to staying in the top 3 after their comeback at the end of 2022. But a report from SoyMotor.com says that Ferrari will come into the 2023 season with a much more powerful engine. It is said that Ferrari will be able to get an extra 30 horsepower out of their power unit when they try again to win win the Formula One championship in 2023. The regulations have put a hold on engine performance until the end of 2025, when a new generation of power units will take over. But fixes for reliability and cost reasons are still allowed. And this is supposedly how Ferrari will be able to get as much as 30 more horsepower out of their power unit. Since the Scuderia had to turn down the power at times in 2022 out of fear that the power unit would fail, improving reliability will give them a bigger power reserve to use. Mercedes might be able to find more speed at Brixworth though. We can only imagine Hamilton and Russell are hoping to find something before 2026. And now, let's look at Hamilton making a promise to Mercedes about staying. First up, Hamilton wants to stay with Mercedes longer. Lewis Hamilton thinks it was a good move for Mercedes to hire Mick Schumacher as a backup driver. The talented driver had to leave the Haas F1 team and is now on the German team. The Briton thinks that Schumacher will help the team do well in 2023, but Hamilton puts the partnership in perspective. He said that they don't work with the reserve driver as much as they used to. Even though they are still teammates, they have to do a lot of simulator work. Hamilton says that the young driver will be a good fit for the team, so he hopes Schumacher will be able to keep up with his progress. Lewis even mentioned that he's a driver from Germany and that Michael and Mercedes were already close to each other through his father. The German medium also wanted to know what would happen to Hamilton. The 7-time world champion is under contract until the end of the next racing season, so this may be his last year in Formula One. But both Mercedes and Hamilton have said they want to keep working together for a longer time. Even though the talks haven't come to an end yet, Hamilton doesn't think it will take longer. Hamilton made everything clear when he said, "I will definitely stay." He also added that he would rather leave with a world title than with nothing. Up next, Hamilton thinks he can take the team to more championships. Hamilton is optimistic about his future, and he told reporters in October that he's planning to do a multi-year deal with my team. He says he doesn't really know what the next 5 years will bring, but he thinks they're still trying to figure it out. Apparently, there are a lot of great things that are being set up. There's a whole story about how Lewis's career is winding down, and that has been following him around for some time now. This is honestly a pretty scary situation to be in because, let's face it, we've all been in careers and jobs where we've had to ask ourselves, what's next? And it seems like Hamilton has been asking himself the same questions too. At this point in his life, he keeps asking himself if there's somewhere higher he wants to be. He says he's in a happy place in his life right now and a lot more grounded. He has a home in the UK that he gets to spend time in when he goes there to see the team or when his family comes to visit. So he thinks it's just a better setup all around, and he feels like he can lead the team to more championships. Both Wolff and Hamilton have used the decision in winter deadline, which means anytime between now and April when the Northern Hemisphere starts to warm up. In other words, expect news when you see it. Until then, you have to wonder if money will be a negotiating point. Finally, is Lewis Hamilton still worth the massive wage bill? For a number of years, Hamilton was the highest paid F1 driver, but in 2022, Max Verstappen made more than the Briton. The Dutch ace won his second world championship and made a cool $60 million, according to Forbes. It seems like at age 25, Verstappen's career is on the rise, and his earnings are likely to keep going up for a while. However, Hamilton, at age 37, may have reached a plateau, which raises the question of whether Mercedes will keep paying him the $55 million salary after 2023. Hamilton is sure he will stay with Mercedes, but we're wondering how much the money factor will influence this decision in the future. In another interview, he said he has had a pretty amazing 15 years, and he's just living in gratitude. In 20 years, he doesn't want to complain every year about whether or not he won a race. Instead, he thinks he'll be thinking about the championships. Lewis has also said that when he looks back, he'll think about how lucky he was to work with great people, how successful they all were, and how difficult things were at times. times. These are the things he says he'll remember, and he won't complain about whether or not he won one race every season or was the youngest. All these records will be worthless to him. He said that what matters more to him is the journey, the great friendships he has made, and the values he has tried to stick to. That's a wrap for this video. What are your thoughts on Hamilton staying with Mercedes? Do you think Mercedes' potential mistake can go against them in the future? Let us know in the comments below. Also, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like these. See you in the next one.